Hey there, I'm Chris Benetti, host of the Smart Author Podcast. In this episode, I speak with Julie Eason of Thanet Publishing, and we discuss some of the freakouts that authors go through when they write and publish their books. If you're currently stuck with writing your book, then this episode will be perfect for you, as it will give you the steps and tools you need to get through all the stages of writing, editing, and proofing your book. Some of the main topics we'll be covering today include what it's like working with big name authors, how to position bonuses and resources in your book for optimal lead generation, and getting out of your own way so that you can finish your book. At the end of this episode, make sure you visit our website where you can find the show notes, plus all the links mentioned with Julie. If you enjoy this episode, please make sure you subscribe so you're always the first to know when a new episode is released. Now, let's head over to this fantastic interview. Hey, smart authors, welcome back to another episode. I'm joined today by my good friend, Julie Eason from Thanet Publishing. Julie, how are you?
I'm happy. How are you doing, Chris?
I'm doing amazing, thank you. Julie, you are an absolute wealth of knowledge in this space. Would you mind giving everyone a 30 to 60 second catch up of everything Julie Eason and how you operate in the author space?
Everything Julie Eason in 30 seconds. Okay, here. I've been writing professionally for 30 years this year. It's unbelievable to me that it's been that long. I started as a journalist and really just looking at magazine articles, thinking I can write better than that, and sort of fell into the space there. 9/11 happened in the US, and the entire magazine industry imploded, and what we used to pay $2,000 was now paying $35 because it was just on the web. They were going to put things on the web and they didn't know how to monetize then. So it was awful. And I shifted into copywriting, and then all of my copywriting clients wanted books. And so I started ghostwriting books for clients, and then they were screwing up the publishing. And so I started a publishing company. It's really been like, how can I support my business clients? They're almost exclusively business clients. I've had a few fiction authors, but mostly it's just people who want to build their brands and expand their businesses. And now I've gone away from the ghostwriting, and I'm working more with authors who want to build a well-rounded thought leadership platform and use their books to build courses, and use their courses to build books, and all of the, I call it genius extraction. I could pull the mess out of your head that's just, you've got so much genius in there that it's all jumbled up, and make it into an orderly fashion for a book or for a course or for an entire funnel where you're leading people all the way through your entire business. That's me in 30 seconds. I don't even know. I wasn't timing.
Well, I love that you've built everything out of necessity for what your clients actually need.
Yeah, it was literally, I just love books so much that it hurt me to watch them put a bad cover on, or publish the wrong way, or they are all genius marketers. I mean, I'm working with top marketers, so that was not an issue at all. It was more like, let's make the book actually good, instead of putting some kind of schlock out there and then just using really great marketing to sell it.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of people think of a book as like the end all be all, but the real intention is really just as a front end opportunity, as a authority builder, so that you can lead people into other things that you offer, other core services for your business, and things like that.
That is the ultimate goal for the author. I always say you have to have an audience, a purpose, and a goal. The audience is who you're talking to. The purpose is what you're trying to help them accomplish with the book, because you don't want to only sell. If you're only selling in your book, it's like back 10 years ago, you could do that. And everyone was like, oh my gosh, you're an author. But now you can't do that anymore, because everybody can publish a book. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows how easy it is to do those things. And so you actually have to put more thought and effort into creating the right structures. And really, a book's the whole purpose is to lead people from point A to point B, when point B is that conversion point to the rest of your business. So whatever beliefs you need to break, whatever myths you need to bust, that's what the book is for, is to get people in the right mindset to convert into a customer of your programs, your courses, masterminds, your products, your services, whatever it is that you're selling.
How is it like working with these big marketers? Like you've got some really big names on your roster. What was it like working with those guys? Was it like difficult working, or do you ever get like starstruck sometimes, or like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm working with these people?
I think every author is a badass. I love working with authors. And I mean, it's funny because some of the biggest names I didn't even know who they were. And they weren't really names when I started working with them. Honestly, like the books that we create, like for Russell Brunson, for example, the books that I wrote for him when I was working with him, those are the books that launched ClickFunnels. Those are the books that launched that platform, the .com secrets, expert secrets. Those books were like it for him. And what star strikes me, that's not even that's not right. What makes me starstruck is the genius inside these people's heads. And the fact that they are so eloquent when they speak, and they are brilliant writers in and of their own right. Like these people have no problem writing ads. They have no problem writing sales copy. But for some reason, when it comes down to writing a book that they really care about, and they really want it to be a genuinely impactful book that lasts for 10 or 20 or 50 years, then they get stuck because they don't know where to go first. They just run around in their heads. I call it the 5 author freakouts. This is the title of my recent book, where you're running around in your head. And the very first one is like, I don't know what to do. I don't know. Should I write here? Should I write there? Should I write this book? Should I write that book? And people tell this story of like, I tried to write a book for 5 years. I've tried to write a book for 9 years. And they always come to me with this story of, I've been trying for so long, and why is it so hard? And it's because they're geniuses. They have too much in their heads. And these marketers especially are so ahead of the curve that they're always learning the new thing, which is great when you're doing ads because you can change things at the drop of a hat. But something that's going to go into a book that's going to last 50 years, you actually have to think about that a little bit, right? Like it's hard when you have to distill all your knowledge when you're continually learning new things, and you have to put something in a book form that's going to be static and forever. And it freaks people out. They're like, oh my God, what if I change my mind? So I love working with all authors, and I think everybody's got genius inside them. Sometimes I just need a little help pulling it out.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually had an interview with another guest that everyone here will hear soon, but we spoke about what it's like to write a book on a topic that is not evergreen, generally speaking. So he is in the SEO realm, and he wrote a book on SEO, and SEO is kind of changing all the time. So it's like, he basically said, you can't focus on tactical as much because, yes, the tactics will, the theory will, for the most part, stay the same, and it probably will continue to do that. But you have to think about the foundations and like the core pillars of what you're writing about in that certain topic. And I think like a lot of people have to be very strategic with how they're writing their books, so it does have a legacy aspect to it.
Yeah, you really have to. One of the first authors that I worked with years and years and years ago she wrote one of the first books on Facebook ads. And she literally she's like, I never leave my basement. I'm constantly updating that book. And because she self-published it, she can do that. She can completely update the book all the time. But she's like, every time I put out a new edition, they change something. And I'm like, yeah, maybe you should find another topic to write about, because it's never going to change. And she didn't know, I mean, this was, 10 years ago. She just didn't realize how time consuming it would be, and how often she would have to update it. So nowadays we say, look, if you want to do the tactics, or you want to add links, or you want to do those kinds of that are going to change all the time, just put a resource page on your website, link to it in the book. And you can change the web page as often as you want to. You can do videos, you can do whatever you want. And then you still have the evergreen book, and you're not constantly rewriting it.
And speaking of resource pages, just as like a side note, like everyone should have a resource page in their book, just because if you're selling on Amazon, you're not going to get that contact data. Like it's very important that you have a reference point so people can come back into your world somehow. Otherwise, you can only serve them in the format of the book, and it's kind of up to them to continue the process. And so it's very important that a resource page comes into play, because that way you can get back in front of your customer, and you can kind of control their customer journey again.
Exactly. Yeah. And I always tell people that you want to put messages about what you offer in three places. You want to have in the very beginning of the book, like before the title page, you want to have a high value bonus. So maybe it's a journal, a workbook, a coupon, a quiz, something like that, that it has a price tag attached to it. And hopefully the price tag is more than the book. I learned this from Perry Marshall way back when he wrote The Ultimate Guide to Google AdWords. And there was this big old circle on there that said free $50 in Google AdWords. I'm like, what? And it's a $25 book? Score, and of course Google gives $50 to everybody, but you don't think about that when you're buying it. You're just so excited. So if you have that, and the reason we put that in the front of the book is because when people go through, and of course it's got a link to go get the thing that you want them to get. When they're on Amazon searching and they're looking through the look inside feature, the preview feature, which they're going to do, that's the first thing they're going to see. And so even if they decide they don't want to buy the book, or, they get distracted or whatever, they know back of their heads, and sometimes they go there first, they just go to that link and they download the workbook or the journal or whatever it is that you've got for free. They're going to go and buy the book eventually, but it's just a nice way to kind of capture those people right up front before they're diving into anything else. Then we have people, so that's the first place. The second place is that you seed the idea that you have products and services throughout the book, but not too heavy. And the more mainstream that your niche is, the more likely you are to be in bookstores and things like that, where it's a thought leadership platform kind of book. You don't want to do a lot of selling in the content at all. But for self-published books, when it's a lead magnet, people expect it, and it's fine. You just don't want to overdo it. And then in the back, advertise the hell out of everything that you've got, because if you've looked at any book, including like a science fiction fantasy like novel, those publishers advertise the other books in the series or the other books in their catalog all the time. People expect to see ads in the back of the book. And so you can advertise your programs, you can advertise your software, you can advertise anything you want, and you can have picture advertisements. This is the beauty of self-publishing, is you can put whatever you want in the back.
And
so those are the three places.
Yeah, and I think people get like so caught up, and they're like, I don't want to sell too much or things like that. And it's, at the end of the day, the reader is going to want to progress if they want to progress, and if they don't want to look at the ads, they won't. Like it's not really right. You're doing yourself a disservice if you don't include that, and a service
right.
To the people who do want to look at that if you do include it.
Or at the very least, where can they follow you online? Where can they learn more about you? So in your back matter, which is everything beyond when you type the end, all the other stuff like the about the author and the acknowledgements and all of that is called back matter. You can put a follow me page that's got all the places, or you can have it just a couple of little links attached to your about the author page. Whatever it is that you're doing, it's, even if you're hesitant to sell in the content, which is fine. I'm all for like, teach your brains out and don't sell in the content, but you are doing everybody a disservice, and they're going to go find you anyway, because you're writing an awesome, amazing, brilliant book. And so they're going to want to find you. Make it easy on them.
Absolutely. Julie, can we talk about the 5 author freakouts? I'm excited for this new book, and I
love talking about
a bit of a deep dive before this session. And I really think that the 4th and 5th freakout are very applicable to anyone who wants to launch and sell more of their books.
Yeah.
So
yep.
I love the titles of the freakouts. They're so, especially the 4th one.
They're so cute, aren't they?
So good. And the graphics are amazing as well. And anyone who's listening, I will make sure that there's a link to her book in the resources in the show notes. But the 4th one, Percival von Perfect, the 4th, or Percy for
Percival
short.
von Perfect, yes.
It's so funny. So this is like, we want things to be perfect before they launch, but often you get stuck, right? So can you talk a little bit about this?
Sure. So it's not even before you launch. This is even before that. The freakout number 4 happens when you're stuck in an editing loop, because you're editing and you want to make it perfect. And so you're like, I got to do one more read through, and oh, I need to add one more chapter, or I just have to tweak this page. There's something not quite right about this page. Or you get feedback from beta readers and they're like, I don't understand this page, or there's typos on over here in the first chapter. And you're like freaking out with editing, and you're going around and around and around and around. And I wrote this book for my clients because they all, even though they were not writing the book, they were all going through these 5 freakouts. They were all on a journey to becoming an author. And I was just coaching them through the same things. I'm like, oh my God, yes, we're getting ready to actually publish this book. You have to give me the manuscript now. It's almost like I had to rip it out of their digital hands to get the manuscript away from them so that we could publish it. And they're like, oh, but I just want it to be perfect. And so what I have to tell them is there's no such thing as a perfect book. I have books. There's a very famous science fiction writer who I just love, Robert Heinlein, who wrote in the 70s and 80s. And one of his most famous books, I literally bought the 50th anniversary edition in an airport bookstore, and half the pages were upside down. Like you can't, and this is a major publisher, major. Wow. I mean, it was a 50th anniversary edition of this massively best-selling book. And I'm like, and I took it up to the guy at the counter. I was like, I don't know what to tell you, but like these pages are upside down. He's like, it happens. And it was not even like really? A thing. It was like, it just happens. Things happen to, you can edit your brains out and you will have something that's wrong. You'll have a typo. You'll have a sentence you didn't mean to say, and the problem is that books are permanent and we don't live in a permanent world anymore. We live in a completely digital, transitive, like I can change anything at the touch of a button, and I can take down a blog post or I can delete a video, but you can't do that with a book, except that you kind of can. As long as you're not being traditionally published, if there's something that's so egregious that you're humiliated to death and you have to change it, you really can take that file down and fix it and upload a new file. It's totally fine. With 5 author freakouts, we found out that the cover design, the subtitle that we put on the front was just too small to read, even when it was printed. But we didn't know that till after we printed it. So, we downloaded the file and refixed it and uploaded it. Like, that's okay. You can do that. But at some point you have to decide, I'm done with this book. Like, I'm done and I'm handing it off to my publisher. And the biggest thing to understand is that you've got to trust your team. You've got to trust that you have a good editor. You have to trust that you have a good publisher. And if you're the one doing it, you really need to get guidance, because there's so many steps. And that guidance can be a book. It can be, a course. It can be a kind of a book shepherd. It can be something we do done for you stuff. So it doesn't matter how much you want to spend or whatever. It just matters that you have somebody that's done it before showing you the ropes, because there's so many steps to it. It's not hard, but it's definitely a lot of steps to do the publishing. So that's freakout number 4, is just like, I don't want it. I don't want to give it up. I want to just keep editing it forever. And that's a subconscious, I don't want to let it go. You don't want to lose control, because as soon as you push that button and you send it to the publisher, it's out of your hands. And that loss of control, it just flips a trigger in our brains. It goes, I'm freaking out. So that, and it happens to everybody. And I have never had an author who didn't say, oh, that's not me. I won't freak out. I'm not like that. They all say that. I'm not like that. I will never freak out. And every single one of them, when the book is done, they're like, yeah, I totally freaked out. I'm sorry. Like, they all admit it. They see it in themselves, which is why I wrote the book, so that I could send it to them. Okay, so when I tell you you're going through freakout number 4, this is what it looks like. And this is, this is it. So this is how you take care of it. It's funny. And then freakout number 5, once you get over 4, you go right into 5, which is when you're wanting everyone to love it. And that's a totally normal human response. You're a little nervous about marketing, depending on your subconscious, I call them subconscious safety protocols, your things that are running the programming in the back of your head. Some people have programming that says, nobody makes money on books, or, who am I to be an author? Things like that are running in the back of their heads. And so freakout number 5 will actually stop you from doing any marketing. even though you're good at marketing, even though you'll be willing to market for somebody else, or you're great at Facebook ads, but the marketing that you do just won't work. And people don't know why. And they freak out because like, oh my God, what's going on? Because they're afraid if they put it out there, and what if people don't like it? You know, even my A-list clients will text and go, oh my God, look at this. I got a message so-and-so, and they really, really loved it. You know, like message after message after message of all of these people who this author really respects. And then he's like, oh my God, they really like the book. They really think it's a good book. And I'm like, yeah, I know, that's because we wrote a really good book. But for him, it was a freak out. He was like, what if they like it? You know? So anybody who's at those stages, just understand that it's totally normal emotional behavior. And also at some point you got to get past it, or your book's not going to do anything.
Yeah. And like we're going through this process because we're building something to give to people. And if we get stuck in the subconscious, like, oh, it has to be perfect, or it's not ready, or, you know, you're holding up the opportunity for people to get it in their hands and to get value from it, to be able to go from that point A to point B. And so you just got to remember why you're writing the book in the first place, to help you overcome those kind of things.
If you've done the work and you've written a good book, you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
But there is the opposite problem where there's a lot of really bad advice out there saying, you know, publish a book in a weekend, just record yourself and publish a transcript. Transcripts are not books. Transcripts are you speaking, and there's nothing wrong with speaking a book, but you actually have to do some more work to get it done and to make it look like a book and read like a book and feel like a book. So there's a lot of bad advice out there that is getting people to publish things that really aren't ready and really aren't good. And so that's where, you know, having professional advice comes in, where it's like, I just don't know. I have a lot of people come to me. They're like, I've got a manuscript, but I have no idea if it's any good, because they don't. I mean, they think it's good. They did their best, but it might be brilliant and it might not be, and they would never know. And so making sure that you have someone you trust that you can have look at it. And we always tell people that they should have people look at their manuscripts who are in their target audience, have some people who know what your content is and know you speak and know whether this is going to be a good reflection of you or not. And then have somebody who doesn't know who you are, but who is in your target audience. And that way you find out where the holes are and where the gaps in understanding, where you might need another framework, where you might need more explanation or a picture or something like that, because that gives you the well-rounded, like, yes, this is my voice. They have confirmed to me that this is good content for what I normally put out. And you've got a total stranger telling you, oh, this is really good stuff. I'm so glad that I was able to read it. Thank you so much for letting me read it. So it's nice to have confirmation from both sides.
Yeah, makes sense. Pretty much like from the gist of what I got from the book as well, it's like most of the things that make authors freak out, it's less about the tactical things like the writing of the book, the ideology, all of that, and more about the self-conscious, or like the inner work that the author needs to do to go through the process of writing and publishing and launching a book. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. So really it comes down to imposter syndrome, self-doubt, negative thoughts in your head. And that's a human thing that happens for everybody. It's not just authors. Authors just seem to have this knack for doing it. Like they just are really good at it. But it happens in any kind of creative outlet, to painters, to artists, to recording artists, to, you know, ditch diggers. I don't know if they have imposter syndrome, but they might. They might. So what I try to do is I try to get people to understand, if it's truly that they're just, you know, there's this common advice: just get your butt in the chair and sit down and write an hour a day and you'll get it done. Right. But that's basically like willpower. That's saying just go to the gym every day and you'll be, you know, a rock star. It's willpower, and it lasts for a little while, but it doesn't last forever. And so what's the subconscious, the deep down stuff that's actually going on? What are you actually telling yourself? And are there ways that you can have conversations? I love having conversations with myself. I'm an extrovert. I love verbally processing. So if I can get in touch with that deep down part of myself and I can say, okay, so I haven't been able to write in 4 days, what gives? You know, and I have a really great relationship with myself. So I can, you know, I'll listen. I'll say, why are we having such a hard time with this chapter or this framework, or what is going on with this bit of marketing? And you always know the answer. The answer is always inside of you. We tend to go out and we buy courses, we, you know, hire Facebook ad experts, and we go outside of ourselves to find the answers, when the actual answer to whatever's blocking us or keeping us from where we want to go is inside. And we always know the answer if we're able to ask the right questions and we're able to listen.
Mm-hmm.
And so inside the 5 author freakouts, I go through all the stages, and it starts with the very beginning of the book, and then it goes through the writing of the first draft. The third one is the third freakout is where people quit because they wrote the book and they thought they were done, and then they read it again and they hate it, or they think, oh, this is awful. What was I thinking? And they just put it away and they forget about it. Right. And it's the pictures I love for that one. They're just like, oh my God, I can't believe I just did this. I spent 6 months of my life writing this book and it's awful. So we go through all the phases, phase 4, phase 5, and I give different strategies and exercises and ways to talk to yourself and your subconscious mind so that you can get your subconscious and your conscious on the same page, getting them both going in the same directions. Because when you don't have that, it can feel like you've got one foot on the brake and one foot on the gas. And you're like, I want to go. I know what I want to write. I know exactly what my outline is. I know exactly how I'm going to put it into a funnel. Why can't I freaking write? Well, it's because your subconscious is keeping you safe, and you're safe if you're right where you are right now, which is not being an author. And your subconscious, I call it a safety protocol, because it's always going to override whatever your brain wants to do. So if you want to write a book, you want to publish a book, you want to have it be a bestseller, that's all fine and good. But if your subconscious doesn't want that for whatever reason, whatever trauma happened to you back in 6th grade when your teacher said you were a terrible writer, that's going to override anything that you want to do. And so that's what the book is all about, is how to get your subconscious to go along with you and do what you want it to do, so that it's an easier flowing process.
Julie just said, like, you know, we buy courses and things like that. You can literally, for $3.99, you can get all the information you need in Julie's new book to help you overcome any of that kind of stuff. So no courses needed. You just need $4 and you're set.
And you're all set. Well, I have courses too, but you know, I really, it's fascinating to me how many ways we stop ourselves. And I'll tell you, I learned a lot of this stuff from Annie Grace when I was working with her on her book, The Alcohol Experiment. And she, and This Naked Mind, she's developed brilliant frameworks around liminal thinking and making your subconscious get on the same page about your relationship to alcohol. And I'm like, oh my God, it's the same freaking thing with writers. Like, we've got this other world inside of us that's really calling the shots. And most of us are completely oblivious to that fact.
And I would argue that, you know, like, courses are fantastic. And I'm a massive proponent for courses, but it's like people over justify the need for a course when, like, the book has the same content, but the course has it in almost like a different format. It's slightly expanded, but like, I feel like people can get so much benefit from books and they discount them because they're just a book, you know, and courses are like so much more expansive. And there's like this attractive thing that we like do to justify a course over a book when, you know, generally speaking, there's usually the same content in there, but in a different format or an expanded format in, you know, a course. So
that's
either
the way
way,
most of them are. Yeah.
Yeah.
I tried to set them up a little bit different.
Yeah. Either way, you know, Julie's got fantastic courses. She's got fantastic books. Like, just buy either of them and you're going to be perfectly well set.
And if you can't look, if the book isn't any good, what are you going to expect to be different out of a course? Right.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like the book is almost like a trial, if it is the same content, which when I write books for people or I help them with their book development, we're looking at getting the beliefs changed and the shifts that need to happen for them to be successful with the course. So we're not actually creating the same content, but it's similar. But it's almost like a trial. Like if read the book, listen to the book on audio. Is it good? Is it making sense? Does it excite you? Does it make you feel like you can do things? I have a framework called Inspire, Educate, Sell. Every book should inspire, educate, and sell. Because if you inspire people, they're going to believe that they can do it. If you educate them, they'll know how to do it. And if you sell, they'll have the resources and support they need to actually freaking do it instead of just thinking about it all day long.
Well, awesome, Julie. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I've had an awesome time, chatting about all of these 5 freakouts, and then everything else regarding. I got like so much from the positioning in the book and things like that. Like, I think everyone's going to get so much out of this episode. Is there anywhere else where we should send people to learn more about you and everything you do?
Yeah, you can find me on julianneeason.com, which is my primary website. I'm on Facebook. I'm mostly on LinkedIn, but I am pretty much everywhere. Julianne Eason has a lot of E's, so it's JULIEANNEEASON, which I didn't think out very well when I got that URL, but it works. So that's the best place you can find out about all the things that I do.
Awesome. And again, that'll be in the show notes linked up. So thank you again, Julie. It's been an awesome pleasure. And I can't wait for everyone to hear this episode.
Yay, my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Damn, what an awesome episode. If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing on your podcast platform of choice so you get notified every single time a new episode releases. And if you're struggling with your book sales, head over to smartauthormedia.com/audit to get a free audit of your book sales, to see where we can help you bridge the gap between not many sales to a lot of sales. It's a free resource call that we have together where I give you some clear action steps that you can take to take your stuff from broken to selling. I'll see you over there. Thanks again for listening.